Good morning and welcome back. We're on course 1, 6.4 to 6.5 quiz, and we're finding the absolute value of negative 4 2/3. Well, remember the absolute value, all it is the distance from 0. So if we have on number line and we have 0 over here, and we have to go all the way over here to negative 4 2/3, well, it's the same distance as if we went from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2/3. So it's the same distance. So what we have to do is start from 0. We'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2/3. But except for this side of the number line is negative, and this side of the number line is positive. So the absolute value of negative 4 and 2/3 would be 4 and 2/3, because we just have to hop our number line to 0. I'm going to get out the number line for a moment and show you this one. We have negative 3 and we have and 1. Okay, so again, here's our number line, and we are comparing the number 1, which is the distance of 1, to the distance of negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So we're comparing it, we're comparing these two numbers. We're comparing negative 3 and positive 1. But we're not comparing negative 3. What we're comparing is the absolute value of negative 3. And so whenever we say the absolute value of something, we're talking about distance. And so when I look at the distance between 1 to 0 and 1 to negative 3 to 0, I can see negative 3 is bigger. So the distance or the absolute value of negative 3 would become 3, 1, 2, 3. And so that's going to be greater than the absolute value or the distance to positive 1. Okay, so which ordered pair corresponds to point P? So here we have this 0 right here is this point right here where they intersect is point 0. So if we go this way on the number line, we're going positive, and this is our x. If we go this way, it's negative. If we go up, it's positive on the y. If we go down, it's negative. So we're looking at 0 right here, and we have to go to our x first. So we have to go 1, 2, and we land on what the number is that? Negative 2. Then we do our y, and we go all the way down here. Well, it's not quite to the negative 4, and it's past the negative 2, so we go 2, 3. So it's negative 2 and negative 3. So now it says plot negative 3 and 0. So remember, x always goes first, and x is negative 3. Well, here's our 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and our y is 0, so we don't have to go anywhere. We just stay right on that line, and there's our dot. B says 4 and negative 2, 5. So again, we started our 0, and we do x first. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's our x, and now we have to do the negative 2, 5. 1, 2, and halfway between that would be 0.5. So there's our second dot. Now, the point of negative 3 and 0 is in which quadrant? And first off, they want to know is which axis is it? Negative 3 and 0 is right there, so it's on the x-axis because it's right there on that line, which is the x. Then they want to know which quadrant we're in. Well, we are in quadrant 4 for the second one, because remember, we go 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 is all positive, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and we're good. So simple. I want you to plot the next ones, and then you're going to do the distance between. Remember, all you're going to do is count. Count the distance. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you guys can do this. Count the distance from here to here. Count the distance from here to here. Okay, let's take a look about this. Plot 4 and 3, so we know it's going to be in the positive. Then plot its reflection on the y-axis. Okay, so we have 4 and 3, and what would be its reflection if we picked this up and folded this paper in half? Where would those dots be? Well, they would be the exact same spot. it would be 3 and -4. Now, this is what exercise 7 says. It's a totally different question. So just like, let's forget about the last one. Okay, but we're going to use that graph for a second that we just had. Let x be less than 0, okay? So if x is less than 0, here's x, this line right here, it has to be over here. So what two quadrants can it be in? It could be in this quadrant, or it could be in this quadrant, okay? And y is not equal to 0. So the first one, it could be quadrant 2 or 3. It could be either in this one or this one. And then the second one is describe the possible locations of the reflection of the x and y in the x-axis. So if y is not 0, then it can't be over here. It has to be in one of these two. So it's still going to be the same thing. It's going to either be 2 or 3. Ta-da! Done. Okay. So now we're going to plot -3.5. So we go 1, 2, 3, -3 and 1/2, and then we go up to the 5. So that's our first point. Now, if we do our reflection, it would be +5, +3.5 and 5. So it would be the opposite. The reflection would be right over here. Now they're going to ask you to make a, plot the reflection of the point in the axis, plot the reflections of the point of x-axis. Okay, so you're basically going to make a rectangle. So you're going to do all of them as 5 and 3.5. So you've got a rectangle going. Now what they want to know is what is the perimeter of the rectangle and angles. What I want you to do is just pretend like there's a line drawn, and you can either do it one of two ways. You can do the formula for perimeter. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do our formula for perimeter, which is 2L plus 2 width. Okay, so our L is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2 times 5 plus 1, 2, 3.5. 2 times 3.5. Oops, sorry, 3 and 1/2. Okay, so now, let's see if I can clean that up a little bit. All right, 2 times 5 is going to give us 10, plus 2 times 3 is going to give us 6, and 2 times 1/2 plus 1/2, or 2 halves, is going to equal 1 whole, so this is going to equal 7. So 10 plus 7 is going to give us 17. Now, when we look at that right here, the 17 is this perimeter, this part of the rectangle right here. But our part of the rectangle isn't just 1/2. It didn't just go to 5. It actually had the reflection as well. So it had all of this. So the way you do that is you multiply it by 2, and 17 times 2 is going to give us 34. The other way we could have done it is we could have laid out our 5, which would have been, 5 plus 5 over here would be 10. 10 plus 10, or 10 times 2 would be 20. And then we would have done 3.5 here and 3.5 here, which would have been 7 here and 7 here, which would have been 7 plus 7 is 14, and 20 plus 14 is going to give us 34. And I apologize because my drawing is not great. But what we have to think about is when we're thinking about the x and y, we need to remember that there's a line that's driven right down here. And what they did was they asked us to draw a rectangle. So now we have our positive x over here, positive x over here, positive y, negative x, but positive y over here. We have both are negative in this quadrant. And then down here we have positive x, because this would be going over this way, but we're going to be negative y. So now we want to find out what is our length and what is our width. Well, we have to take one of the sides of our length and multiply it by one of the sides of our width. And when we take the width, we have 3.5 going across. Well, 3.5 plus 3.5, because we have to do both sides of that, would equal 7. So that's one of our widths, and our length is that 5 plus 5, which would give us 10. So 10 times 70, or excuse me, 10 times 7 would be our answer. Okay, in the real world, for exercise 9, in the real world, you're going to be giving information and they're going to expect you to be able to manipulate the information. And what they've done is they've given you a graph, and when you look at the little chart, you have a business, and they're calling it, instead of a name, they're calling it C, D, and E. And then underneath it, it says profit in dollars. Well, if there's a negative sign in front of it, it means they lost money. If there's no sign at all, it means they gained money. So then they also give you 2 more businesses, and they do not put them in the graph. So what you need to do is make another graph, and what I would do is I would write it down. So that's what we're going to do. This is why in math I always tell you to write it down. Have a piece of paper and a pencil, because when you actually write things down and you redo it for yourself, it begins to make connections in your brain. I don't know why this is. Now, some people are one of those brainiacs that can do things in their head. There are very few of them, and it'll bite you sometimes later. So you want to be careful that you are making sure that you are not in the habit of just thinking in your head, because it will not make a connection for you. Now, this is a little bit sloppy because when I'm writing with this oversized pen, and there's no way to keep it small, especially because I write big anyway. So we've got all of these things going on, but we now have a chart. And the reason why I wrote this like this is because remember when we did the x's and we had to do it, um, x is less than 750? Well, this is what it's saying. Some number, A, made less than 750, so we're not sure what that number is. Same thing with B. B made more than 500, so x is greater than 500. So we're looking at the x. We're looking at each one of these. Business A has a profit that is less than 750. So business A, we're going to go down here and we're going to find ours, and we're going to find the one that says a loss of more than 750, because when we're talking about loss, it's going to be less. Business B has a gain of more than 500, and here we are, gain of more than 500. C has a loss of 850, and when we think of that number line, here's our 0 and here's 850, how far away from it distance wise? So it's going to be a loss of $850. So it would be right here. And then, well, I'm going to just let you guys finish the last two because they're pretty much the same exact thing. I'm going to give you the answers for 1 and 2. It's letter D, business D, or number 2 is business A or business C. Same thing for exercise 10. I'm going to give you the answer for it. Here's the graphing. And I can't get down there from here. So let me see if I can get there. Hold on. And there you have it. Hope you're having an amazing day. Good luck to you guys, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.